Hey guys, welcome to another voiceover tutorial. My name is Sakimi-chan, and for this term's voice tutorial we will be doing another pretty much painting walkthrough, and I will be talking while I paint, but this time instead of going through my usual process, I thought I'd just straight up start with painting and color blocking instead of having to do sketch, and see how that changes our workflow, because I do know that sometimes, you know, switching up your painting process or creating process can lead you to discover new techniques, and maybe you'll kind of like think it's more fun also to switch it up a bit. So that's what we will be doing, and after most likely I'll do a not safe for work walkthrough of how I usually create them, because I do usually do the not safe for work after each of my pinup pieces. Before, when I first started, I used to do them beforehand and then paint close on top, but since then I stopped doing that, and now I just straight up do the normal version and then do the not safe for work version, as I find that a lot easier. But anyways, let's get started. So this term subject is Riven. So I've actually wanted to paint her for a while. The new League of Legends cinematic that they released is really cool, and in the YouTube thumbnail they use Riven's portrait, and I thought that was such a powerful shot that they had of her, and that's probably the best rendition of her ever out there. Yeah, it's really cool. She reminds me of Ciri from The Witcher, so only because of her smoky makeup, smoky eye makeup. But anyways, let's get started. So I actually started out not doing much of a sketch, and I just straight up move on to like color blocking, which is what I will be doing, basically using a fairly big brush. I am also, of course, I am looking at a reference on my secondary screen, and I pulled up the iconic Riven portrait that you see on the thumbnail on YouTube. I think it's such a great angle. The lighting's awesome, so I'm gonna try to see if I can get a bit of inspiration from that. Maybe, oops. So basically I am just trying to sketch out using a fairly sized big brush, and I'm trying to sketch out a pose for her. Now she is quite fit in the trailer, so I'm gonna try to make sure to give her the muscles that she's supposed to have. Okay, this might be a little simple. I was hoping for maybe a more challenging pose. I'm not sure, but anyways, this is what I have so far, just a blob, nothing really detailed. Then I'm gonna move on to a bit of shadow. So right now I'm gonna start by just kind of sketching it out pretty much. So I find this way a bit more efficient than sketching and then coloring it in. This way you already have kind of the colors down, well, the basic color blocking down, and you just have to draw the lines, and you don't really have to commit to the lines because you can always paint over it. And that's one thing I find super efficient about just straight up painting and not sketching it out. But then again, if you're kind of like me and really messy when it comes to sketch, in order for me to get better at sketching, I find it better to sketch and then add the color block down. So I think I've gotten better at that since I've done it almost every single time. So now I'm kind of like feeling wanting to change a bit, so this is why I decided to do it this way. So this is kind of like the reverse. So we got a rough guide here with no features. So of course her hair is actually really light compared to her skin. Like even in certain shots it's abnormally white for the lighting composition, but then again, you know, like it's not real, and with digital creations there's always ways to push things, and I think the contrast of her hair really stands out against her. I think her skin is a little tan, so it really stands out and gives a really cool look. So this is what our pose will be. Perhaps her face should be, I mean her head should be like maybe like this or that. So this is where stuff becomes a bit more flexible, because I have to mention that some people, when they see me changing a lot of the pose, they feel anxious. But this is just how it is usually. This is like the best time to play around with the posing and stuff like that, especially because this is not a line art dictated piece. You can like literally try a lot of stuff. So that includes changing poses like many times, and yeah, kind of seeing which pose inspires you the most. So I kind of just changed that bit, and maybe later, probably if you guys like it, well, I'll see from the reaction you guys have to this tutorial. If there's a good reaction, I will kind of show you guys how I can make this a bit more complete, as in not just a portrait, basically adding more complex background and blending the character in. Actually, I think that would be a really cool tutorial. But first we have to kind of make sure the pose is good. Now I'm not super inspired by this pose, to be honest. Okay, let's just keep this as one of it. This tutorial might take a while because I get super indecisive, and that's actually not a bad thing, as long as you make sure you have a copy of your previous version in case you don't like what you do afterwards, because that can be the case a lot of the times, and then you'll regret not having older version to go back to, pretty much. Maybe I can do kind of like foreshortening a bit. So if that is the case, then I have to kind of make sure to make that very obvious by using a bit of lines of this stomach. And we have to fill that in, but the lines is just kind of like a guard, and because of that foreshortening, I'm gonna make this hand a lot smaller, as if it is receding into the distance. Actually, she could be holding her. Okay, gotta figure out how the sword's gonna be. So kind of like that. Now I'm going in for more of a full body at this point. This might be a little bit more complex. I kind of want to find a way to do this a bit better. Anyways, gonna draw her outfit. Kind of want to put my own spin on it. So well, basically she's got like straps here, so this is gonna be kind of like a pin-up version, and then she's got like other bandages here. So this is actually a pretty good way of just using this way to just establish some basic design without committing. Kind of like that, and hopefully this reads as kind of foreshortening. Then she got her this way, as if the sword is kind of going into the disc kind of foreshortened as well. So this is the top, indicated by the highlight, the hilt of the sword, something like that. So let's see if this works. And of course, using the lasso tool, I am going to kind of refine her silhouette a bit more. Now don't be afraid to kind of overdo it, because you can always add it back. This is not locked in place. This is all just kind of just a guide pretty much. So she's got like one strap here, one strap here. Just gonna make it more pin-uppy, and gonna give her maybe another strap down here, perhaps, like that. Alright, so this is what we had before, and this is what we have now. So this is just a little bit more detail. Now this is not completely locked down, because I'm pretty sure once we start adding more detail, we'll be doing a lot more changes. It's just how it is. So this is 2, 3, and I kind of want to keep it this size, but at the same time I don't want to make this canvas any bigger, so I will be doing it kind of like this. So this is step 1 and 2, and then I'm gonna duplicate this layer, and then I'm gonna move on to step 3 and 4. And because of that, we need to make sure that there's a background for them, and the background I'm gonna stick to a standard grayish background. Actually it might be maybe a little darker. Actually, I'll probably change the background color as oh my god, that melted in with the hair. Maybe a little darker, maybe like that. Deselect, and then I'm gonna copy the same background over here. So now we're on to step 3 and 4, if there is room. So delete the previous one. I'm gonna bring this over here, and we're gonna start working on it a bit more. So now I think I'm gonna go back to my reference of the cinematic, because that is literally how I'm gonna want to do my lighting. Gonna kind of follow that and maybe put my own spin on it later on. Using my lasso tool, actually not lasso tool, I'm just gonna make an airbrush. So hardness 0%, lock down my layer. Actually, we're gonna duplicate this layer just to make sure it's opaque enough, and I'm gonna merge it down, lock the layer, and then go in with a shadow color. Wait, deselect, yes. Sometimes it doesn't work because you selected a random area. Anyways, gonna use the dark. So I did notice in the cinematic there's shadow over here, and pretty much shadow kind of like on this side of things, I guess, like that, kind of. And then there's like super intense highlight on this side, and then kind of contouring the silhouette of the character like this. Let me just quickly select the areas that I think will be in highlight. So, and maybe here too, and a bit over here, maybe a bit here. Okay, so once I've selected the areas, I'm just going to go to brightness contrast and make it a lot brighter. And as you can see, before, after. So now I kind of establish where the lighting is, and that done without using lines. And sometimes if you get used to this enough, it should be a much faster way of kind of just getting the basics down before you start refining it. And as you can see, my sketch is actually quite messy. Let's move it in the center a bit. So this is what we have. Alright guys. Okay, so now let's start working a bit on the body, and then we'll leave the face for the last bit that we're gonna be working on, just because I'm the type of artist who gets caught up in the portrait, like the face part of it, and sometimes I waste too much time, so I'm just gonna work on everything else beforehand. So yeah. So let me just duplicate this again, then we'll add it to our next step. So I'm gonna name this 3 and 4. So sometimes when I start adding detail, I prefer to make a new layer on top so that I can always go back, erase it if I don't like what I'm working on. But for now, this is what I have. I'm gonna start by refining certain areas. So I'm gonna start off with a darker line, and I'm gonna just kind of start. Oh, I had it on multiply. Let's remove that. I'm gonna start kind of just refining the arm area here, and do want to let you guys know I do have a reference on my other screen. It is the reference from the cinematic, and it really helps, you know, in case you're kind of not sure what to do, to always have reference, so I always kind of encourage it. So I kind of want to keep her bandage fairly bright. I do notice that in the cinematic her clothing is kind of like a gray tone, but I kind of want to make it a bit brighter just because maybe it'll be nice contrast, because I do plan to make her skin in shadow, and in order to make her clothing pop a bit more, it's gonna be slightly lighter than the shadow of her skin, just to create that contrast and whatnot. And this is definitely not gonna be what's it called? This is not gonna be exactly what it will be final result. This is just gonna be like a bit of shading here and there just to create shape, because color can come after through a lot of editing and color changing. So this phase is all about just kind of establishing those shadows using the colors that we have at the moment. Take this away so I can actually draw a bit of cleavage. I like drawing cleavage. Okay. And shadow here. So I am actually using a combination of soft brush and hard brush. So sometimes I switch to solid round brush, sometimes I switch between solid round brush and airbrush, and sometimes it's just airbrush. It really depends on the mood, I think. A lot of people, well, you know what, you can use whatever brush you want, honestly, for this phase. It's the most important thing is when you start refining, you have to make sure you have sharpness in your piece. So yeah. And I'm gonna use a slightly darker color to make some of those textures. And yes, I wanted to give her like a bikini version, bandage version, just because I would like to paint abs. This is like not acceptable. So this is just starting out, and a lot of times my stomachs and ab area can look really, really awkward, and so we have to always kind of adjust and whatnot, so adjust to it. Going to make the hip just a bit bigger, and maybe even delete this a bit more, like Okay, that looks a bit too skinny. Gotta bring that back. And let's see, so probably gonna be shadow underneath here. And the abs is gonna be really, really close. Like that. And I'm gonna use a darker color and I'm just gonna sketch out the hip area and where it's supposed to be. So hip bone right here. And I have the okay. Now she looks really skinny. I have to remove the super kind of blend the shadows in a bit because it is a bit too skinny for the build that we're going for. So now it's really messy, so I'm gonna take the smudge tool and smudge it, and as always I have scatter option on so that it can blend very, very softly. Okay, so now I'm going to work a little bit on the legs. It might look weird at first. Yeah, it looks kind of weird, but we're just trying to clean the whole thing up, and you'll notice that as you clean things up, your piece might not look as interesting and as creative as you started out really roughly, and that's pretty normal because actually it kind of has to do with what I'm talking about, but at the same time it's kind of on a separate tangent. But basically back in school, my teachers would say your thumbnails will always look more interesting than your finished piece or more refined piece, because the human mind will kind of come up with like their own thing, and each person will have their own interpretation. And basically, you know, it's always better to have like many interpretations because you don't actually give out the full detail than if you finish a piece and it's all refined and all the details been presented. It's just not as fun. So that is pretty much how I feel when I start refining a piece, is that once I refine it, sometimes it loses some of those creative interpretations that artists or viewers might have, pretty much. So yeah. Anyways, it's just a little bit more detailed. I'm gonna bring back those leg straps. Maybe I can give her like one of those, you know, those, actually I don't even know how to call them. They remind me of barbarian leggings. It's like animal skin. You know how in like you hunt and stuff and you use every part of an animal? So basically they make like leggings out of animal skin. It reminds me of that. So I think that would be really cool because she's kind of going for a gladiator look, it feels to me, in the cinematic. So I think that would be pretty cool. At least maybe have an asymmetric type. So we have the muscle here, and the armpit. Again, looking at the reference, because I do see the armpit painted like, well, not painted, but like modeled like that, and I think that looks pretty good. And I'm gonna put shadow on, especially on the flat part of the chest, and making sure the highlight is on the chest itself to create dimension. And also I'm gonna select the under area of the breast wrap, and maybe this area, and I'm gonna merge it down, go to adjustment, and I'm going to make it darker just to kind of make it feel like there's shadow. Okay, so now comes the tricky part. If what you're doing is makes sense or it looks completely whack. So it does look a little whack, that's okay, as long as you know it looks whack. So I'm going to make it slightly smaller so that I can properly adjust it a bit. So I'm gonna just select the whole thing, go to filter and liquify. So liquify is actually a pretty good tool. I did receive a comment saying that it does look a little blurry once you use it. If that is the case, there's always the option to sharpen your image a bit more. But otherwise, this is a great tool to just kind of use to quickly fix certain mistakes that you see, while especially during the process where you're not really finalizing detail. It's just good to kind of just make sure everything looked good from the start. So I kind of just extended her a bit. She was looking a little smushed. Maybe and sometimes, you know, liquify, the first time you do liquify might not even look that good. So I'm not sure. It might look really weird. I have to see. So this is my first attempt. Let's see if it looks weird. Okay, so this is how that looks. I like how she's really thick. And trying to make sure she's buff too, because that's in the cinematic. She's quite fit. I can just continue to paint a bit and maybe edit it a bit later as well. So maybe move that side, have a look see. So right now I'm staring at the main screen and also on my side of the monitor to look at a smaller version of it. Usually, like if you look at here, a smaller version, it does help you see if there's anything weird going on. Okay, so now I'm going to select this. I'm gonna just bring that down a bit. And then probably copy the bottom and then gonna bring that one down too. Kinda like that. So this is before, after. I do like this. She looks more thick, which I like. There we go. I also like the amount of curves. Okay, actually, let me see if I can fix that area too. So the hand is gonna be like my nightmare. Let's just say I kinda don't wanna really paint the arms in this, because in my past tutorials I did not paint arms, but now I have to. I am not looking forward to hands or painting arms. So right now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that her hand cannot bend like this. Maybe a little bit of a behind the torso would make this look a little better. So after I rotated it and fixed it up at least to what I think is okay, and I'm gonna flip it back and see how it is. It's actually not looking too bad. So this is before, after. It's starting to get there. Okay, time to do step 5 and 6. Alright. So I'm gonna bring the copy over here onto this side. That's step 5. So let's zoom in and let me try to see if I can kind of start refining a bit more by buffing up the arm over here that I kind of see on the reference that I want to replicate. So, but then again, it is kind of in a different angle, so it might not work out for me, but I still want to give it a shot. So I have the muscle going like that. Contour that muscle. down here. Like that. And now I'm gonna be working on the bandages a bit, maybe just add a bit of a gray tint to it. And let's use a slightly darker color for the shadow. Again, just kind of grazing it around, not too much commitment. Going into a much darker color now. I'm going to bring back the detail of the bandages. That goes contour around. And going to add the shadow as it is appropriate because of the follow through of this area, so shadow falling through on the bandages as well, and just kind of adding a bit more shadow here and there. Pretty much using my lasso tool, I'm gonna contour the chest area so that I can work on the arm behind it. Again, not really sure if I'm gonna keep it like that, but let's just roll with it for now. So cleaning that up and paint back some of those bandage areas. And I'm going to kind of make sure the ribcage here stand out by making it slightly lighter than the arm so that it can stand out. Now for the hips. So I'm gonna go this way. So this is where the hip bone is, and similar to here, that's where it is, like here. I'm just trying to, oh yeah, make sure that everything's on a separate layer in case you get it wrong. Well, in case I get it wrong, because I make a lot of mistakes, so always safe than sorry having everything in a different layer. Now for the belly button, I would like to select a much darker color. Draw that on. Actually, I should probably look for a reference for foreshortened abs. And then down here it's gonna be in shadow, because we do want to create a dip, the natural curves of the human stomach, which sticks out a bit so that it catches the light on top and then shadow underneath. Even for people with abs, they still got it. Just going to kind of slightly indicate, especially when the girl is like super ripped and muscular, well toned, at least toned and fit, and have low fat. It just they also have a bit of that little V cut like the guys, but not as prominent, of course, which I thought was pretty interesting. Actually, I should probably look for a reference first. Alright guys, sadly I couldn't really find a good reference for foreshortened abs, but I do have a reference of a pretty much frontal view of it, so we're just gonna use that as a guide. So, just gonna try to follow it the best that I can. Goes down like that. But it might not look too good. We'll have to see, we'll have to adjust, so bear with me. And again, a lot of this is just kind of experimental, trying to see if, you know, this will work. And if it doesn't, no harm done, just delete the layer or erase it, doesn't matter. And the more you do this type of stuff, the more practice you'll get. So that is on the bright side, you have that. Always more practice means more experience, and in time you will get better at it. Okay, so I'm seeing a bit of highlight over here. That goes in like this. Oh, actually, shadow here. And then there's a highlight here. There's a highlight that goes kind of like this. So I'm just like looking at the reference right now. Don't mind me, don't mind me. A lot of the times I also need references too, so I'm not really an expert just yet, but I'm getting there slowly and surely by just looking at a lot of references. Okay, let me just bring this down a bit. And bring that down. It's looking a little messy, I know. Just kind of testing it out. Let's use a much darker color, use a smaller brush. Let's see if it's okay if I just put it here, if the hip ends here instead of up there. So this is before, after. Let's zoom out, have a look, see. So you can see that there is a bit more definition, but it is a little muddy. And that's just because I used a lot of airbrush, and that's just what kind of finish airbrush usually gives you if you just use only airbrush. So let's try to see if we can add a small bit of detail. I'm gonna use my lasso tool to contour the outer rim of the waist. I'm gonna pick a much darker color and kind of contour it so it is starting to be a bit more sharper. And on this side too, gonna use the lasso tool, select the outer rim, bring, and then contouring the outer edge of the waist with the same color here, just extending it downward, making sure everything's nice and consistent with the shadow tone and everything. It doesn't really matter if it's not exactly the same because you can always change it after, as long as the shadow is good. And put a bit of highlight here because I see that in the reference, and putting it there. And they also have a little bit of highlight up top of the belly button. So yeah, always good to use reference. Don't be scared of using reference, always good. Okay, and gonna go ahead and blend the bottom area in. Gonna very subtly highlight this area, and then going to select the curvature of this part here. I'm going to darken this area up. Oh god, that's not looking good. So while I'm doing that, I'm looking at my other screen, making sure that the shading isn't super crazy. Okay, let me darken this area. And then this is where the hip supposedly is. And this is where it starts, hopefully. Just following the reference once again. Don't mind me, guys. This, you know, a lot of times I'm just following the reference, and sometimes I'm like, this makes no sense while I'm painting it. This is exactly what's happening. It's not making much sense to me, but this is like my attempt at making that bone really prominent. It's just, yeah, that's how it is. And here I'm going to bring in the highlight a bit, and then I'm going to use the lasso to select that side of the leg, bringing the highlight downward at the same time bringing the shadow along with it. And I'm just gonna blend that into the leg area. And then gonna extend the leg thickness to, okay. And oftentimes I also want to look for reference for the leg, especially for like trickier angles, because I don't want to be drawing like too blindly, as in not really sure how to draw certain things. So oftentimes it's good to have, I often have reference pretty much. That is the point I'm trying to make. Sorry for repeating it. Okay, and then just kind of bring that down here. And then kind of select underneath that leg so I can push shadow underneath this area as well. And maybe I can put a bit of shadow, just a little bit on the leg, so it goes kind of like this, in a almost like a Y, like this kind of, but not that prominent. So I'm gonna just try to feel it out, which is usually how I kind of experiment and try to use reference this way. So I pretty much follow the reference and then I feel it out, make sure, look at it from far away, trying to see if it makes sense. And if it makes sense, I'll take note of it and I will kind of try to replicate it next time without reference. That way you kind of train your brain to memorize certain way of shading, and it's helpful. So this is what we have. So zoom out for a sec. So this is before, after. So after, it is a little bit more refined. And the reference I'm using, I'm going to tell you guys, it is not a real picture. It is a 3D model an artist on ArtStation did. Like, there's so much good reference on ArtStation, especially the 3D artists. They do some really good anatomy studies. And yeah, I find those really helpful to look at. So yeah, I'm kind of digging this, so I think I will be keeping this. So after I'm happy with it, I'm gonna merge it down, and while I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and clean it slightly. And you know what, this might not even be the final result, because a lot of times I'll probably change it back and forth. You know how it is. I am super iffy about a lot of things. Usually don't really commit to one final thing unless I feel like this is the best it could be, which doesn't really happen that often. I like to fuss a lot. But for now, let's try this. I'm gonna put a bit of shadow here. And then add a bit of highlight on the side. Actually, maybe not that much. Maybe just here. And I'm gonna make this part shaded too, so there's like a rim light around the character. Now, it's not done. This is not confirmed until we flip this, because you know, once you flip it, oops, I flipped the whole thing. I just want to flip this one layer. Transform, flip. Once you flip it, a lot of times you'll see like weird stuff. So yeah, I mean, the app itself is looking pretty good. It's just I don't really think it works too well for in terms of what's it called, foreshortening. So I'm gonna try to see what I can do here to make it feel more foreshortened, pretty much. Let's see. And maybe if I wrap this if I wrap this around more like that, maybe I'll feel a bit more foreshortened, because it does go all the way around like that. Okay. See if it works if I just remove that one. Meh. Actually, let me try something. I'm going to select this part and then going to extend the highlight over so that it feels like the highlight is going over there and we can see a bit of the upper part of the waist on that side. And same for here, just going to extend this a little like that. Okay. And still keeping up with the bandage. Let's kind of add a little bit of highlight here. And working on the cleavage a bit. Make it slightly lighter in the middle. Switching to a standard round brush. Have a bit of definition here of where the muscle starts. Kind of extending the shadow down here. Kinda like that. Gosh, she is looking very buff, which is good. Because that's what I want. Okay. And making sure that we can see her her clavicle just fine. And see above the bicep a bit. Like that. And then also the muscle on the neck. Might actually make her neck just a little bit thinner just because her neck is actually quite thin in the cinematic compared to her build, but then again she has a really slim buff build. So let's see if we can kind of do that. Deselect, gonna take off some of these areas. So this is what we have. And I'm going to select underneath one of them. And I'm gonna put shadow underneath. Like that. There we go. So that it feels more like foreshortened. There is a lot of shadow and whatnot. And I'm gonna select that area because I want to put a bit of shadow underneath the bandages as well. I'm gonna sketching in a bit of that shadow detail too. And now for the bandages that wraps around her, it might be a little challenging just because when you paint stuff like this that wraps around the body, you kind of have to paint the anatomy into it as well, especially when it's like wrapped around tight. So just keep in mind the anatomy. I'm just gonna follow the shadow pretty much, and then I'm gonna use my lasso tool to help me clean stuff up and whatnot. Like that. I'm just going to add a bit of that cleavage shadow here. This, like maybe this is a bit too much. but let's see what we could do. Since this is on a separate layer, we can kind of play around with it. So highlight here, put back some of those bandage detail, and then I'm gonna select this side and then follow through on that. So highlight here, shadow on that side, highlight here, and then I'm going to try to shade the clavicle a bit. Okay, so adding a bit of highlight underneath the shadow of the clavicle first, put shadows in, and then put highlight underneath the clavicle shadow, and have a bit of shadow here to kind of define the bicep of the arm, and then highlight down here gently. See how that looks before, after. So zoom out again, which will help see. So this is very defined. We don't need this much definition, but this is like a landmarks for anatomy, and after we have that done, can just smooth it out with the smudge tool. This helps create soft detail, but detail nonetheless. And then I'm just going to kind of blend in that arm like that. I'm dreading painting the hand here, but we'll do that afterwards. I'll leave all the details that I am not looking forward to for later. So kind of blending in the highlight up top here, especially on top of the bicep of the arm, which is quite important. And then I'm gonna select that real fast and do the same for the tendon of the neck here, or the shoulder, and the neck area. So that's gonna be our neck. I'm going to kind of use my airbrush to indicate a bit of the shadow of the clavicle, just very subtly. At the same time, going to kind of, actually let me just make sure that it's not super airbrush. I'm going to just select the areas where I want to put a blend in with the airbrush, and leave the rest here, especially the bandage. I don't want to touch it so that it doesn't look overly airbrushed. So now we have that. Gonna add just a bit of highlight on the chest for that extra pop. Do still want to keep it sexy fairly, so this is why the cleavage looks very emphasized. And I do like the paint type, as you guys know. Most of my characters are like wearing super tight clothes. So yeah, okay, so this is what we have. We zoom out before, after. So yeah, there we go. Always keeping it on a separate layer so that I don't have to touch the rest of the body. I mean, I don't have to worry about not working on the rest of the body, and leave the face for last, pretty much. Alright guys, let's see. Okay, let's do a bit more refining before we move on to the next step. I'm just gonna try to refine the arm here a bit, and then we'll move. Alright. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clean the shape up a bit. Maybe that was a little too protruded, and I'm going to use the lasso tool to keep it nice and clean. And I'm just going to softly render this out. So have a bit of highlight over here. The shadow's gonna extend and slowly connect with this side here to make the bicep look. And then I'm going to go into this armpit right here. I'm going to add a bit of highlight here, and then gonna use a slightly darker color and then contour the inner part of the arm. Okay, so now the chest is looking a bit weird, so let me just redo the shadow over here like that, and then blend it into the rest of the chest. I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but I just want to fix this. So again, cleaning stuff up, gonna use a darker color, and I'm just going to paint that out. And the side too, like that. And then I'm going to clean that up too by just using the lasso tool to kind of keep the silhouette sharper and clean at the same time. And now I'm going to use the lasso tool once again to clean up the silhouette of the arm. Delete. Here we go. And using a secondary layer, just wanting to make sure that I do this part right. So we have the bicep part here. Again, using the airbrush because it is a nice soft. And then switching to solid round brush, well, a mix of it. And I'm going to kind of try to define the muscle over here, which looks like this. So you have the bicep, at least that's what I think it's called, and then it's wrapped around the two lower arm muscle in a twisty motion like that. Okay, so this is what we have here. Let me just kind of refine this a bit more and also add a bit more shadow here. It's gonna darken this like that. And kind of just kind of make it slightly darker, so it might actually not look as good. I might change it after. Let me try something else. So I'm gonna keep this muscle lighter and then this part darker, trying out another way to render this out, pretty much using what I see on the reference, which has this type of lighting, and probably here is darker. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of put the shadow over there so we can make it a bit more contoured. So again, looking at the reference here, making, okay, there's a bit of shadow in between here and here, and I'm going to switch to highlight. So right now it's looking like really airbrush, but do not worry, we will be making it sharper later on. Right now I'm just trying to make sure the rendering or the way it's rendered is looking appropriate, so to say. Okay, going to add a bit more shadow underneath the main arm muscle here, add a bit of highlight, and just keep it like that. Let me switch back to the solid round brush. Actually, no, I don't think that works. So a lot of times I'm going to be kind of testing out the arm more or less. bit of highlight over here. Like that. Okay, so this is before, after. And it's not looking that much better, to be honest. Let's just remove it. So this is a case of, you know, just it's good to have it on a separate layer in case you don't like it. Just remove it. I'm gonna go ahead and put the wrapping on the arm. This just for that extra bit of detail. And of course we have the wrapping of the hand bandage as well. Like that. This I feel like I'm gonna copy merge and then Control T and then warp select to kind of warp how this is wrapped around. Honestly, sometimes I don't really end up deleting, I just end up using the background color as a way to clean stuff up and then later on really select it and deleting it afterwards. So don't worry about that. Selected the outer corner of the arm and adding the highlight. Going back. Oh god, that's not looking too good. Okay, let me just rotate this and see if we can come up with something from this angle, from this side. So let's keep this bigger for sure. And this is definitely smaller. Okay. And then I'm going to select this. Going to liquefy once again to kind of redo the whole thing here. Maybe tuck that in a bit more, tuck the shoulder in a bit more. Let's reduce the size of the brush. Let's bring this over. So once again, this is purely just speculation pretty much. This is what I think might be able to make this look a bit better and make sense more. It might not turn out as well, but we gonna try. Just going to make this a little bigger. Okay, so this is what we have. Gonna go okay and have a look. Oh, I mean, that's not too bad. Let me remove that bit. Actually, no. Let's keep it like that. And like that. Not actually sure. Let me see if it'll look better if I just like move the belly down, maybe? Like down here. And then darken this area up. Darken that area up and make this area slightly lighter. And this area slightly lighter. Just have a bit of that light coming through, and then the shadow over here on each side here. Cast it from the chest. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, now what we're gonna do is, once again, we're going to just flip this over again. Check it out, see if it makes sense. Before, after. I think it's making a bit more sense. Before, after. I think it definitely makes a bit more sense. I do like the dip, so I probably stick with that. Oh, but this arm though, not really happy with this arm. Let's see if we can kind of do a bit of a refining. Oh gosh. So we got the thumb here, and then the finger. So I'm gonna make her hold the chain, sort of like the cinematic, in the cinematic. Okay, first adjust the shadow over here. So, arm highlight. And I'm gonna use a bigger, softer brush just for the general shadow and highlight, just to give a general shape. So this is what we have after. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the rib cage over here. Now that I have the highlight over here, that makes it seem like this area is popping out a bit more, so that is why it gave me the opportunity to give a bit of a protrusion over here, which is good, which is like a landmark, of course. And then I'm going to go ahead and indicate just a little bit of that ab curvature, like that, just very softly using the airbrush. And over here I'm gonna put just a bit of the rib cage, not too much. Actually, I might not even put that much. Just sometimes I'm just going to use the airbrush and just kind of cancel it out. And have a bit of highlight under, up here against the belly button. And I'm going to use lasso tool to just make sure this area is nice and clean before I have the highlight that goes like this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use a bit of a hybrid between the soft brush and round brush, and I'm just going to kind of create the shadow and the highlight of the anatomy and kind of just refining it. Gonna make sure that this wrapping goes all the way around, and I'm gonna start putting a bit of that texture, like a ripped cloth texture. That, and then I'm gonna clean that up and over here too. So we have the shadow over here and highlight on this side. So just making sure that it is very separated and visible, and of course always making sure that the cloth is wrapped. Like that. Wrapped around, and then of course paint a bit of ripped texture using a much smaller brush against the side here, just stacking on detail pretty much. And using a darker brush, on the side against the cloth and the skin, of course, to give a bit of shadow and that dimension. And just going to blend this in like that. Use my trusty smudge tool to blur that. And there we have it. Actually, I think it's looking a lot more, makes a lot more sense now than before. Definitely think so. And probably gonna, actually I kind of like this definition over here and here, so what I can do is copy the old thing and then plop it onto the new thing and just kind of bring it over here a bit. And then going to darken it because it is in the shaded area, so just darken it a bit so that it fits with what we have. Actually, don't have to darken it. Yeah, just keep it like that. Yeah, and then this side too. Gonna copy what I had previously, paste it on there so that I can keep it as it is. There we go. Now, just to make sure everything is really okay, I'm going to rotate this once again and see if it makes sense. Before, after. It does make a bit more sense, but still needs some work. So let's just keep working on it. But I do like this a bit better. It makes a bit more sense. Merge it down because I'm happy with it. Gonna go into the chest area, copy paste. Just going to kind of extend this outward just a bit. Like that. Merge it down once you're happy. Okay, and next onto the hand, just going to go ahead and fix that up a bit. I'm gonna go in here, copy paste, gonna make this part a bit bigger, erase that bit right there, and just gonna use a slightly darker color to contour the side here, especially the side facing the armpit, and make it just a little bit darker. Add a bit of shadow contouring the skin and the wrapping, and then I'm gonna go into a bit of highlight and I'm just going to contour the very edge of the wrapping. Probably put a bit of grain there as well. And just kind of give a bit of secondary rim highlight on the side here, and then put back the texture. Of course, always have to put back stuff. And going to go select the very edge, and I'm gonna put that highlight there, like that. And maybe just a bit of highlight here too. Yeah, I think it works. It's not bad. So, it's before, after. Just blur this area. Gonna go ahead and wrap this around the arm a bit better. Like that. There we go. Okay, I think it's starting to make a bit more sense, which is good. Now I'm going to add a bit more shadow over here, and then I'm gonna see if this will work. I'm gonna add a bit of highlight over here, which is to follow through on this side right here so that it connects and makes sense. Now you can see how smooth that is and how rough here is, so just gonna clean that up as well. Once that's cleaned up, I'm gonna go ahead and select this area because we want to make sure that this is wrapped all around the character, and I'm gonna put a bit of shadow around the character as well. There we go. And of course we have the leg. Let me try different shading here. So gonna put all of this in shadow for now. Gonna select the inner corner of the thighs with the lasso and gonna add more highlight, kind of like this, and then going to add shadow in a triangular fashion like this. Actually, move that so it looks like this, and then I will actually, first of all, okay, I'm going to put this area in shadow, this whole area in shadow as well, like this, and then here too, and then just have the texture on the side, especially where the highlight is. So as you can see, the highlight is on this side. You can extend the skirt slightly over here, and then select the outer area here, and then we're gonna put a bit of that highlight over here like that. So if you zoom out, before, after, this is what we have. Alright, not bad, not bad. It's progressing okay. Now I'm just going to clean up the shoulder area on the side by using the lasso tool once again, and just making sure it's nice and clean like that. Okay, I kind of want to see if it looks better if I like move this a bit over here, or actually add a bit more shadow on that side, maybe like that. So right now I'm just kind of testing out different shading for the abs just slightly to see what gives the best result. So maybe like this, bring it over, always using the airbrush to keep it smooth and fast. Airbrush is actually the most efficient way, at least for me, to go about correcting certain things, or like do a really rough shading without too much commitment. So just testing out a bit of that. Okay, I think that should do it. It's before, after. Okay, actually I kind of like before, so I'm just gonna do it in between. That should be good. Alright, so we have that done. Now gonna slowly work up to the face, so just selecting this area here first and make it super dark in preparation of the head. And of course I want to kind of slowly fade it out a bit, just to have a little bit of darkness but not too much. Don't want to commit right away. And then this area too, copy paste, adjustment, darkness, like that, and then softly kind of bring back the highlight. So this is a way for me to just quickly build up shadow without committing too much, or at least see if it works. So, and also you can lower the opacity on that layer if you feel that's too much. Okay, I'm going to make a new layer for this because I would like to work on the arm separately on a I would like to work on this arm separately on a different layer. So I'm just gonna cut Control X and then Control Shift V to paste, and moving it behind the character like here or something. So there we have it. And as you guys know, I also like to work on the head separately just in case, so I'm gonna just separate the head and the body on different layers as well. That way you have more control in editing your character. So kind of like this. So this is step 5 for us. I'm just going to rotate this back now. There we go. And let's see before after. So this is 3, 4. Wait, this is 1, 2. And then we have 3, 4. And then we have step 5, which is a bit more rendered. And then we're going to have step 6 now. Move that in place here. Alright guys, next step. So off camera, all I did was I kind of stretched the body out, and I also selected the outer rim and made the highlight pop just a bit more. So now we are back. Okay, I think it's time to work on the face just a bit. So I'm gonna start out by just kind of fixing the hair just a bit. And again, looking closely at the reference. That is always important. And I noticed that her hair, despite there being like a lot of intense shadow, it's always very bright. So that's what we're gonna keep the hair very bright. Like that. And it goes in for a swoop, and then it goes in like this. And then in here and into a swoop like this. So her ear doesn't really show too much. I'm just going to see if we can get away with no ears. Be accurate to the cinematic. And then we have the back ponytail. I'm just gonna select the front area, the back, isolating the back area, and then I can see that is actually quite dark here. She's got like a ombre thing going on, and then we have the ponytail swirl here. Sticking out like that. Of course, this is not very clean, so let's clean this up. Delete, deselect, and also I'm going to extend the canvas just a bit, and then I'm gonna just extend it downwards as well. Just make it slightly bigger because I want the hair to show, and maybe even make this just a bit bigger so we have more space to play around with, like that big. So this is step 6. Okay, let's zoom in once again, have a look. Okay. I'm going to make the head just a bit smaller. And just gonna clean up the hair a bit more too. Oops. Like that. There we go. And then, of course, her iconic look here, like super dark makeup here, like all throughout. There we go. And gonna try to refine the hair a bit more. Going to use the airbrush to apply a very soft layer of shadow, and then using the airbrush once again, I'm going to add a very light coat of yellow, especially on the inner corner here. And going to darken this area, but then darken this area a lot more. Going to clean the side of the hair just by removing some of that and making the hair strands really pointy at the end, like these. Probably gonna give a bit more volume on the side, actually. Normal mode. And I'm just going to paint that out. Darken the roots here. I can see that there is a gap over here. She's got like a hair strand laying down her face on that side, and then another one here. Kind of like this, and it just goes down this way. Okay, so now I kind of have the hair shape down. I gotta do the face now. So the face is gonna be a little challenging. Okay, so I just found a really zoomed in reference of her face from the cinematic. So now I can kind of have something to work from. First of all, gotta make her face fairly dark because we will be working from shadow to highlight. So highlight on her nose, mouth, chin. There's a bit of shadow going on over here. So this is actually a really good reference for this type of lighting, and it creates a really dramatic look as well. Let's just go ahead and do the eyebrows. Again, kind of looking back at the reference while I do this, as well as the smaller image that I have of the piece while I'm working on it. So of course it's probably not gonna look right on the first time around, but that is okay. Gonna go for a slight highlight over here, go for a bit more shadow over here. Now gonna copy merge the whole face, make it bigger, and replace it back. And I'm gonna use the erase tool to erase. So before, after. So I noticed that probably didn't work on the face the best angle, so I had to change that. Merge down once I'm happy. Gonna go back to the hair area, copy Control V, Shift V to paste. Alright, so pretty much just kind of editing the face here and there because the faces I usually work on are a mess. Like, they're pretty messy. I have to do a lot of editing and stuff like that, so reproportion that, reshape, resize that. I would like to make this part a bit more fluffy. And delete this part. Deselect, going back, reshape the jaw a bit, like that, and then, okay, so I noticed that Bane doesn't really cover her eye, it just goes on her mid of her face, but you can see her eye perfectly well. Again, the hair is really, really bright, so. So now that we have the other eye good, we're just gonna put the super dark makeup there. Right now it's not looking too great, but don't worry guys, we will get to that point. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. There is a bit of highlight on this side, so let's just go ahead and select a slightly lighter color and put it on that side. The most of the shadow is actually on this side, so then we have the nose and the lips. So for the lips, let's go for a neutral tone and shadow. Add a bit of red in there. Not too much, just kind of blend it out. And just like highlight, contouring the lips like that. Okay, this is sort of the lighting I'm going for. There's of course a lot of more detail to it. I'm just gonna select the side of the jaw real fast and just going to slowly blend that in. Just a bit in here. Still with the shadow, I'm going to add a bit of highlight on this side. Shadow here, shadow on the lip side, highlight around it. So this is following the cinematic reference. But of course I'm not exactly using the exact color, I'm just kind of following the guide of the value, the kind of like the shadow, how dark it should be, etc. and doing my own spin to it later. And go over here. Her eyes are brown, so like that. It is still quite dark underneath as well, and then have a little bit of a highlight underneath like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and add just a little bit of highlight here. Now working on the hair, using the lasso tool to help me kind of plan out where everything is supposed to be. And this side, put hair contouring the face like that. And of course have the shadow cast it from the hair on top of the head. I do notice that there is a bit of highlight on top of the brow bone. Just very subtle though. We have the super dark look still going around the face. And have a shadow at each corner of the mouth. And then we have the highlight here, here, and also the shape of the face goes down. Yeah, sort of like less round and more angular, kind of. Then we have the hair. This could be open to interpretation. Doesn't need to follow the reference 100%. Just going to have the same vibe more or less. So this is what we have. So this is the advantage of having it on a separate layer, is that you can totally move it around whatever you want, making sure that it looks good the way the position that you want it to be in. Just going to fix the chin slightly. Close that. Going to add just a little bit of highlight here on that side. Have a bit of highlight here. Okay, now onto the neck, because the neck is the next bit that we need to work on. Make sure that it makes sense. And also probably this area, this part right here, copy paste. Kinda wanna bring it down a bit more. And then have the shadow down here too. Okay, so this is what we have now. Of course, you guys know we will be rotating this. Of course, need to make sure that everything is a-okay every step of the way, because it is a very challenging, especially for short, you want to get this right. So okay, maybe this position. Merge that down. And now what I will be doing, I'm gonna take the bottom bit, cut it, paste on a separate layer, Control T, transform, click that so it is proportionate, and then I can play around with kind of the positioning of this. So this is actually a good advantage. So now I can just kind of play around with this, see what looks best, what makes sense, because I wasn't really convinced what I had previously was working. So this is a good way to do it. Just cut the torso or the bottom half of the body, and then just kind of play around with the pose that way. And I'm going to just take this leg right here, maybe just move it over like this. This is another thing you could do, is to play around with the position of the legs as well. So that's something else that I do oftentimes if I'm not like completely sure about the the look and feel of certain areas. So this is what I have. Have the hand, probably make it just a bit smaller to have that for shortened feel. And the arm, make it just a little smaller on the second part of the arm. Maybe just relax the hand just a bit. Or we could like cut this part and just reposition that bit. So what I like to do is sometimes I use my hand and block the torso, just tell the torso to see if at least the top half is making sense. If it is, then it's just the lower part of the arm that makes no sense. So I think that is the case. I'm going to remove this hand right here because it's looking weird. And I'm going to kind of extend this like here. And then what I'm gonna do is redo the silhouette for the arm. So I did another arm silhouette real fast, and this time this is gonna be the finger, the thumb, the finger like here, and then we're gonna be having the chains kind of. I actually do have a chain texture, chain brush. So this is gonna be like the rough version of it. So that's what we're going to do. To move this up a little. Kind of stretch it like that. Using the what's it called? The warp tool, and stretch this area. And of course I have this leg on a separate layer, which is good. Okay. Now let me make this leg a bit cleaner. And kind of clean up that side too. And clean up the shoulder area using the lasso tool. And of course, last but not least, we have the head, just moving it up a bit. So this is what we have for step 6. Step 6 is essentially me trying to correct stuff. And if you feel anxious now, it's gonna get worse because I will be doing a lot more editing throughout. That's just how I work. Is a lot of, especially when a piece is not line art, where I'm not really sure, not 100% sure where everything should go. This is usually the outcome for the straight up painting, at least for me, because I feel like I make a lot of mistakes and I end up having to correct them later on, and this is the outcome of that pretty much. Okay, so this is what we have. Just gonna make everything a lot bigger except the head. See how that does. Like that. Move this up. I still think the head might be a bit too big. Let me move this down. And also this part too, actually. I want to move this part inward. And then I'll refix that later. I'm just gonna take this, copy paste, and bring this forward a bit. Merge that down. And kind of paint in whatever's missing, as well as fix whatever needs to be repainted because of the editing. So this is what we have now. Let me move this over. Let me just do it like this. Oh, that does not look too good. So a lot of times I have to experiment to see what works. There's many ways of doing anatomy and stuff like that. Painting anatomy at least. So you have to see what works and what doesn't. Maybe the previous one was better. Let's keep it like that. There we go. And of course I wanted the neck to be longer, so copy pasted the neck and I just kind of like made it longer. At the same time I have to make sure to clean certain areas up. Actually that was kind of useless. And then going to resize the neck. And then extending the torso area. Increase the size of the other leg. There we go. And maybe just make this arm just a little bit longer. Hi. So as you can see, I pretty much changed a lot, so now I have to go back to refine and stuff. So after I refined, I did a lot of editing and now I have to refine. Select. Okay, and then we have the sword here. Let's kind of keep it down here or something. Like over here. This is not gonna be super detailed. So yeah, this is what we have as step 6. Actually not too bad. It's looking better than what we had previously. Step 3 and 4, step 5 and 6. Number 6 is starting to have a more defined look to it. Okay, now actually I kind of want to finish painting this area, the sword here. Alright guys, time to do next step, step 7. So we'll just move step 6 over. Oh, actually, I was gonna do the sword before moving on, but anyways, let's just start. So, this step is going to be mostly on just kind of cleaning up each of the areas. So, that's pretty much what we will be doing. At the same time, I kind of want to adjust this slightly. So, I made a layer on top. I'm gonna move it to soft light. And then I'm going to select a pretty light color. And this, I'm going to just kind of add a additional light effect. And I am doing it on a separate layer because that way I can affect all layers at the end. And that's what I want. And then once I'm happy with the overall light changes, I will be merging it down to each of the layers. So I wanted to add this lighting effect because I wanted to create that atmosphere, the warm atmosphere in the cinematic, even just a little bit. And they had like really intense lighting in the cinematic, and that's what we want. And plus it gives a really nice what's it called, secondary lighting. the abs looking a little dark, so I'm just going to see if I can just kind of make it brighter. So underneath here, and then I'm going to kind of erase some of that lighting. And then also erase it on the cloth too. So this is gonna be the special lighting that we have. So this is before, after. And if it's too much, you can adjust it, whatnot. So we can kind of adjust that a little. And I want it to be more colorful, so I'm just going to increase hue saturation. Like, oh god, that might be a bit too much. Let's see what other color. Let's make it like that color. So this is what we have. This is like the secondary lighting. So once we have that, and once we are happy with it, it's time to merge it down. So okay, let me just kind of make sure that this is what I want. I'm just going to erase some of these areas. Okay, so we're gonna go with this. So I'm gonna have to duplicate this many times because we will be applying it to the area, each of the layers. So duplicate that. Make sure to constrain it down to the layer affected, which is Alt click to constrain and merge down. Copy the same effect, merge it down to the next layer, this layer right here. Maybe not too much, let me just make it subtle like this. And once again, duplicate the effect layer again, merge it down to the next layer affected. Let's remove just a bit. Last but not least, the arm. So I'm just gonna keep an extra layer just in case. So the more you kind of add this effect, the more intense it is. Sometimes it might be too intense for certain areas, so we're just gonna keep it constrained to just a few areas like the chest. So I'm actually going to reduce the opacity of the second time we're gonna merge this effect, and let's try it out on different like mode. I kind of like this. It makes it look super intense. Of course, some areas it's not good to make it look intense, so I'm just gonna erase the area where I think it's a bit too much for it to be intense. So just in certain areas, once I'm happy, merge it down, and then again apply this effect down here. So this is one of the reasons why editing phase takes so long, is because of stuff like this where you experiment with lighting. Oftentimes you kind of change the lighting so much that you pretty much need to redo stuff, right? So that's probably one of the leading reasons why it takes me so long to do stuff, because I always end up changing my mind in terms of what lighting I want. Yeah, I'm just gonna erase this and keep this side here super intense. There we go. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much it. And let's see, so this is before, this is after. If I take this out, you can kind of see now it does have a bit more interest in terms of lighting, which is usually what I try to go for. Now that you have the lighting down, now it's finally time to refine, clean stuff up and whatnot. So let's get to it. I'm gonna be using the airbrush for most of this. I just kind of brushed a little bit of a gray color on the side of the arm. That usually neutralizes the color if it is a bit too yellow, a bit too warm or cool. It's like the middle ground pretty much, and it gives a nice effect. We can kind of test that out by putting a bit of gray there too. So as you can see, it kind of neutralized it. Kind of forgot to, never mind. I was gonna make another layer. Let's make another layer for the torso. So again, just kind of blending stuff out. Of course, using the airbrush, the lasso tool, to make sure everything is nice and clean, or at least done cleanly. Okay, I'm actually looking at the reference now, so I notice that it goes kind of like that, at least based on the reference. Like the neck muscle goes like this, and the shadow is super intense over here, but then there's light on the inside of the neck, like that. And then we have the neck tendon here, like that. And then the other side, which I will be using the lasso tool to make sure that I do not paint outside of the line. Just kind of, it's actually looking not too bad. So it's got this type of shading. Let me just make sure that it is right. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and paint the cloth, sorry, the wrap here, the clothing. And I'm going to kind of select the collarbone there. And then going down here, like that. And I'm gonna try to follow through on that on the cloth as well. So highlight here, shadow here, like that. Okay, so this is what we have. And then this side, going to paint the other shoulder right here. I'm gonna have the highlight up top, shadow on the bottom, as we had it beforehand. And just kind of fix it. Maybe add a bit of highlight here. And slowly blend that in. Right now it's really soft looking, don't worry. It's gonna get better once we start putting in a bit more detail. But in the meantime, gotta render that out. So now I'm going to select this area and I'm gonna put like a grayish light around it, once again kind of neutralizing it, also blending it into the environment. Before, after, so it's just a little bit more rendered. Okay, so now I think we can move on to the, oh actually before that, going to kind of add a bit more shadow on top, especially just to emphasize the bottom. Like that. And then kind of just add a bit more shadow on the chest area. Okay, and now I'm going to kind of blend this in. So this part is going to be darker, this part is going to be lighter, and also here, just going to slowly blend that in. And I'm going to add highlight up here, just so the highlight can kind of accentuate the separation of the anatomy here of the muscle, arm muscle. And then I'm going to shade the armpit area. After that, going in with a solid round brush and adding the little detail for the bralette, the wrapping, and just kind of try your best to refine this area, which I'm making sure that the highlights are under and the shadow is on top, based on pretty much based on what we have going on. So generally the shadows on top and then highlight on the bottom. Kind of like that. Of course it's kind of remove some of that lighting, so I'm just going to erase this area to bring it back. And back to this side, I'm going to use a bit of brighter color and then kind of just contour the side here, add some shadow here. Okay, same for here, just have that. And on top of that, I'm just going to add a bit more shadow over here. Because of that, I'm gonna add more shadow on top here, and then maybe even a little shadow here as it gets wrapped, tucked in here. After that, I'm just going to blur that with the smudge tool. Okay, so this is our torso. Before, after, so it's just a little bit smoother. And then I'm just going to clean this up a bit more. And gonna extend that highlight over just to contour the anatomy once again. And of course we're going to do a bit of some roughness to her skin because she is a warrior, so gotta give her some scars here and there, maybe a bit of dirt patch here and there too, so it doesn't look super clean. Okay, so this is what we have, and actually we're not done yet because I still need to do this part. So finish refining that part, add bit of highlight on the side, a bit of highlight in the center just to give dimension. Maybe a little connector here. And here too. Cause I am going for a bit of a gladiator look. So put 2 studs here and there. Okie dokie. So gonna put a bit of shadow here just to have that muscle indent, muscle landmark, like that. And then after I'm done, I'm going to use the smudge tool to smudge it. And now it's time to do the wrapping. So I'm just gonna do it really fast because we have to do the hand first. So for the hand, I usually like to start off with a blob shape with the airbrush, and then I like to go in with a solid round brush, a smaller brush, and to put in the lines and guides, kind of like this. And after, I like to just kind of contour it slightly with a bit of shadow, the corner of the fingers, like that. And then blur that out like this. Oh, remove. Okay, so this is what we have, deselect. And then on the side of that hand, I'm gonna add the highlight because this area has really intense highlight, and I like to capitalize on that. Have the highlight on the arm as well. Like that. And of course, because of that, you have to have it on the arm wrap as well, so it makes sense. And I'm gonna bring it up here and cut it to this place right here. I mean, sometimes it doesn't really make sense, but it makes the composition a bit better because you don't, well, I guess it's okay, but sometimes you don't want to have the highlight all the way through. In order to create more interest, you cut it halfway or have some sort of pattern, but in this case I think it should be okay. So we're just gonna do that. I'm gonna put shadow right up against the highlight, and then after that I'm gonna use smudge tool and smudge. Blend that out. So this is what we have for the torso. Once we got that down, we can actually happy with it, merge that down, adjust. So now you can kind of like make it even more intense by adjusting it slightly. Okay, go to fade, maybe it's too much, we fade it a bit, and this is what we have. And that's how you can kind of make your lighting a bit more intense. And because I made the torso so intense, I have to do it for the other areas too. So first off the head, then the torso. So again, just making the lighting a bit more extreme. And then for the leg, I'm just gonna leave it as it is. I'm going to kind of remove the strap here, and we're gonna do it separately. So the arm is still looking kind of weird. We'll fix that somehow, hopefully. Okay. Actually, let me just fix that. This is the chance you have to kind of clean stuff up. Okay, making sure everything's nice and smooth. Probably here needs a bit of smoothing. that. Actually, no. Yes, like this. Okay, we're gonna keep it like that. And then we're going to have some really intense highlight in certain areas here. And actually I wanted to add just a little bit of grayness in some of these super intensely red areas or super warm areas. It does contrast very nicely, it adds a special feel. Maybe actually need to blend this properly. That. And we'll put a bit of the highlight underneath here. There we go. We'll probably do a bit of a shadowing here and there. Okay, so now I'm going to just hide this arm for now because I want to focus on one thing at a time. So we're gonna work on the torso here. Right off the bat, I want to clean this area up. It is looking a little messy. I'm going to intensify the shadow here, and then I'm going to apply the gray color, just kind of blending that in. And here I'm going to just clean it up, and I'm going to make a new layer so that I can work on this area here, and if I don't like it, I can delete it. So going to go in here and really detailing up the belly button. It is looking very soft and airbrushed, so we want to bring back some of that sharpness, going in with a more solid brush, pretty much that. Okay, so that's what we have. So now I'm gonna go back here and pretty much clean up the bottom area. And I'm going to be using a bit more of a cooler color for this, just to have that contrast. I don't know, I actually don't know if it will work. Maybe I'll redo it, I don't know. Okay. Nah, I think it's a bit too blue. Gonna remove it. Going back. But the thing I wanted to do was just pretty much make sure that it's a nice sharp line between the cloth and the skin. Well, that's what we have. I'm going to extend it over here because it is a little washed out on this side, and we want it to still be showing up more or less. Now I will be going here, select just this area, and I'm going to kind of make it slightly darker, and then bring this up here, and then select the area between the skin and the cloth. After that, I'm gonna put a bit of that color there. Going to select this area only, and I'm going to darken this, darken that area. Almost to kind of follow through on the anatomy. So this part goes down, this part goes up. And then just kind of blend it together afterwards. Like that. So before, after, hold on, let me show you guys before, after. It's just a little bit sharper, nothing really changed too much. And perhaps we can even kind of sharpen certain areas up more or less, or make it less like airbrushed. I'm going to go into my blue, and then I'm going to kind of just graze the side like that to kind of chill out the super warm tone, so that there's a nice balance. Gonna go back to this side, use the same color pretty much, kind of just put it there, and I'm going to go here and start doing a little bit of a definition. Just a little bit, don't want too much. And of course, you know, it can be too much, so that's why it's on a separate layer, so that we can erase it very easily when it comes too crazy. Highlight here. So I'm kind of trying to make the abs pop a bit more. Before, after. Of course this is a bit too much, so we're just going to kind of blur it to almost like only a little bit of detail. Actually, actually before was better. It's still kind of messy. I have to figure out a way to fix that. Oops. Okay. You guys know what we have to do now. Have to flip the image and see what's up. Flip. There we go. Okay, so this is what we have. I think I'll just keep it like this. This should be okay. And then I'm just gonna move this over like that. And let's kind of thin down these areas. Actually, this part needs to go around a bit more. So I'm just going to move that, and then have this leg. Actually, let's move this here, and then what we're going to do is move this leg like this. There we go. I think this pose is a bit more balanced. There we go. Okay, so we're just gonna keep it like that. And then as for the torso, the shoulder is quite broad. Let me just make the chest bigger so that I can resize the whole thing so that it's a bit less crazy. Like this, so that the shoulder doesn't feel as big, pretty much. Let me see here. It's not too bad. Let's keep it. You know what? For some reason, every time I try to do foreshortening, for some reason my mind always wants it to be not foreshortened or less foreshortened. So yeah. So this is what we have. And I'm gonna make the head a bit smaller. See what I mean? It's definitely not foreshortened anymore, not as much. So we have the arm. I'm kind of lazy for the arm, so I'm just gonna make it darker and just kind of add some rim light like this. Pretty much like that, and then kind of fade into the background. Alright guys, off camera I just kind of fixed the cleavage a little, nothing too much has changed. So this is before, it's like more round here, and then after it's like less defined pretty much. It's like a little bit less accentuated, but it's still there. Okay, so now what we will be doing is, oh yeah, I totally forgot because I just started a new recording and we're gonna go work on the leg here now. So because this leg is kind of behind, I'm just gonna make it darker to give dimension and stuff. So this leg will be behind. Alright, so it's darker now. Notice how this leg is standing out a bit more because of that. That's what we want. So now I'm going to just subtly blend some of these areas in. Also gonna make sure it's kind of bright on the second leg here, just because we want to make it feel like this leg is independent on its own and is getting the light that this leg is getting pretty much. So it kind of makes the leg feel a bit more separated and more 3D pretty much, more environmentally influenced, I guess. Okay, now I'm going to paint that strap down there, add a bit of highlight, there we go. Gonna add a bit of shadow underneath this. To cut this cloth right here, I'm gonna add a bit of highlight on that cloth as well. So this leg is pretty much done. I'm just going to add just a little bit of highlight on this side just so that you can actually see the shape of it, and that's pretty much what we're going to be working with. Oh yeah, I also kind of extended the abdominal a bit. I'm going to rotate it just in case. Have a look-see again. Actually, and going to kind of bring it over like this. And then just going to see if it looks better if this whole area was darker. I'm not really sure. Just going to try to make this area a bit more darker and defined, and pretty much cleaning up some of these areas. That it might be a bit too much, so I think I'll just leave it as it is like that. So this is what we had before, after. Okay, now that we have that done, I'll probably come back to the abdominal region later on. For now, just gonna work on the legs. First, I'm gonna start by darkening this area. And also make this area, I guess, lighter, and then this area darker, so that we can get that shading going on follow through, so lighter and darker here. So we have our pretty much hip bone highlighted. So is the cloth that's wrapped around highlighted. So yeah, and after that I'm just gonna blend it in. There we go. I'm going to extend this. I'm gonna extend it here. Maybe. Oh, okay. I kind of want to make it super anatomical, and it's just like, but this would be a bit too low. So once I've done this, what I'm going to do is add the bone back, the bone, the hip bone shadow right here. Actually, maybe this needs to be a bit more thinner like that. And then what I'll do is actually just kind of extending the cloth a bit and just kind of bring it up a bit more so it covers more. And I'm going to also darken this part here. So this is where my hip bone is as well. Like that. Okay. Let's see how that looks. So this is before or after? Actually, let's redo it. Before, after. Actually, I think we need some additional cloth coverage here. So I'm just going to paint that back. Maybe add a bit of highlight. And of course, have the highlight here too, where the hip bone is really intense, pretty much. Like that. I add a bit more highlight over here. This might be a bit too washed out. Needs some over here too. Kind of like that. It kind of needs to be like that, but then again, that means we have to change it on the top too, so that's what we'll do. So this is just a test experiment to see if that works. And then on the top, what we will be doing, since there is lighting here, we're going to add lighting on the chest area. So just going to add the highlight, and then with that add the highlight of the wrappings as well. And that's what we're gonna have. We're gonna have that. Add some shadow here. Just kind of bring it up here like that. I'm trying to see if it's appropriate to have a bit of highlight here. It might not work. I don't think it works too well. I'm gonna erase that. So we'll just have it here. That way it can sort of make sense with how our lighting is going down here. Let's make it a little bit wider. Like that. And I'm going back down here to follow through on that. So this is how I go about kind of determining where the shadow and lighting goes. A lot of times it's a lot of switching up stuff here and there. So yeah, let me remove a bit. Oh, actually, would it work now that I have that? Would that work? Actually no. Actually, kind of. Let's try this first, and I'm going to blur that in, zoom out, have a look. I kind of like it. It feels more dynamic, just having that extra bit of a lighting over here to make the piece a bit more interesting. Pretty much the more contrast, the more interesting lighting there is, the more the piece looks. Oh god, I'm about to repeat myself, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. It just makes it look a little bit more interesting, pretty much. I put a bit of gray in the center to kind of emulate like sweaty skin sort of deal. Yeah, oftentimes you can reproduce the effect by just having like the opposite tone from the overall tone of the piece. So if the skin is like warm tone, then put a bit of like cool tone in the center to make it look like shiny and sweaty looking pretty much. So a lot of contrast creates this type of effect, and it's quite interesting. So I like to experiment with these type of stuff. Just kind of fixing some of these areas. So now this is what we have. I'm going to rotate this, flip horizontal. Okay, so now this is what we have. Actually, let me do it before, after. So this is definitely a lot better in terms of feel. I kind of like this more. So I'm just going to remove the center, merge that down, and remove this part. And so this is what we're gonna have. Remove that bit. That. And actually, let me remove this arm right here. It's confusing me. Okay, so this is what we're gonna end up with, pretty much. Not too bad, actually. I'm just kind of erasing some of these highlights and whatnot to see if that makes sense, more or less. Okay, let me just kind of readjust the shadow here, and I'm gonna put this down here to kind of contour the hips like that. And I'm going to kind of extend this down. Actually, we need to also going to sorry, I'm a bit more quiet, more focused. Usually I get less talkative when it comes to refining and stuff like that, so I excuse myself beforehand. So yeah, just kind of extending the rib cage just a bit, and also making it less bright too. Okay, just going to cover this area up like that, and then blur that. So before, after, I want it to be more refined, and I think I achieved that. It does look a lot more refined. So now I'm gonna go over here and kind of create a bit of shadow that's kind of casted on the bottom here from the chest area. So just darkening that up, seeing how that looks. And I'm gonna go back here. And just kind of reworking the abdominal area. Highlight here. And some shadow. Then I'm going to bring down the hips. Also going to go back to my lasso tool to kind of clean that up. I'm gonna try to see if I can just use the light color now to fix that. I'm just following the light now. Sorry, the shading from the skin and leading it down to the cloth pretty much. So this is what we have. This is definitely a lot more. This is a lot more detailed. Maybe should be a little thinner. Not sure. Let's go for like this. Okay, kind of like that. I made the hips just a little bit thinner because I was feeling maybe they're a bit too big, not sure. So I just wanted to try that out and see how I think that is okay. Okay, so fix that up. Okay, I'm liking this, so I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna remove the paint over belly button so it's a bit more detailed, and then I'm going to pretty much select what I have, the first version, and I'm just editing it in a way to fit my new version. So because I still want the texture that I had on the previous version, so just kind of like manipulate it in a way that it fits the old version. So yeah, this is what we have. So now what I will be doing is kind of in a way adding the shadow to the arm right here. So on a separate layer, just kind of using a darker color to emulate the shadow of the arm. So sometimes it's a bit too dark, so you can kind of erase it more or less, let it fade more or less, and bring it over. And then you can make it not super bright, pretty much. Oh, like that. You can even blend it in somewhat, like that. After that, I'm gonna try to see if the lighting will look better if I add a more intense highlight on this side right here, since I've carved up shadow on that side, so trying to see if it looks better if there's highlight there. Gonna bring some of that highlight down here since it is the same material, and just kind of place it down and zoom out, have a look see here. Sorry about that. That was, if you guys heard that bark, that was my dog. Apologize. Anyways, so that's what we have. I'm just going to make it a little bit more intense since the rest of my piece is quite intense, so trying to make sure that it matches. So yeah, anyways, this is what I have, and just to make sure, I'm going to flip this and hope it looks better. So this is before, this is after. As you can see, it's definitely more like toned-ish, a bit more toned. But I still like some of the old details, so, or the previous details, so I probably will be bringing some of that back. But for now, I do like how it's looking right now. I'm gonna keep this side like that. And for this side, I'm going to just remove this part. So this is what we have. Okay. Delete that. Actually, I think we need a bit more highlight here, like this. Yes, that's good. So I'm going to extend this highlight just a bit more, like that. And going to the top, going in with a darker color, like this. And then just, actually no, I kind of lost a lot of detail over there, so I'll just kind of select the areas I want to be darker. Copy, paste, adjustment, just kind of make it slightly darker so that the skin stands out pretty much. There we go. And then I'm gonna just move it a little over here. And then as for this area, I'm just gonna select it, and I will be using liquefy a bit because I kind of want to kind of play around with this to make it a bit more foreshortened, more or less. Kind of contour the hips better too, maybe. And the leg. There we go. Kind of like that. Oh god, I hope this doesn't look super weird. It might. So kind of like this. Okay, let's see how that looks. Oh, that is super. That might be a bit too much. I'm just going to add a bit more volume on this side. I hope you don't hear that meow either, because that's my cat meowing. Like, a lot. Sorry if you hear it. Hopefully it doesn't pick up. Okay. Okay. Sorry, just kind of thinking to myself. If it works, of course. Okay. I think... Actually, hold up. This might work. I'm just gonna copy this whole leg, extend it down a bit more, like that. So it feels a bit more foreshortened. This part is looking a little sharp. Nah, it's too much. Let's forget about that. But this I still like. So this leg will still go here. Still looking foreshortened, in my opinion. Can even kind of rotate it a little, so it feels more like attitude, like a bit more attitude. And we can put the sword over here, like that, or something. We can put the leg kind of like this. There's so many possibilities. Like, honestly, if you have like, it sounds kind of morbid, but in terms of art, having the character limbs on separate layers allows you to play with the pose more flexible, it's a bit more flexible. So in terms of this, it's working out a bit better in my favor, I think, having everything in like separate layers, and I can kind of play around with a lot of stuff. But I kind of still like this pose where the other leg is like tucked in. But that's just me. Maybe we can just do like an in-between, like that. Deselect. There we go. Okay, I'll just keep it like this. Maybe I'll do like a more complete piece afterwards. So I literally spent 30 minutes just kind of playing around with the body parts. Man, that sounds weird. Not sure. Okay. But we have to move on. So, clean this up first. It is a little jaggedy, so I'm just gonna fill in the jaggedy area. Maybe I can have a bit of light up here. And of course, blend this out like that. Okay, one more thing I have neglected so far is this arm right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to give this arm a bit of attention. So I have the hilt, the sword. Gotta stick with solid round brush. So pretty much this is like the most simplest version of Riven's sword. Let's just keep it like that, I guess. And in the meanwhile, I would like to make sure the wrapping is wrapped all the way around her hips. There you go. Okay. that's good. We have that done. Alright guys, so off camera I did a small amount of editing, so I added a bit of highlight on the high points of the body as well as on the hips a little. So, and also I added the shadow, and that's pretty much it. We're just gonna continue off of that. So it's actually been 3 to 4 hours now. Yep. This is basically how long it actually takes, and sometimes a lot longer because I am super picky. But yeah, that's just how it is for me. But it's actually pretty good practice. Anyways, I think at this point I'm fairly happy with most of this except the abdominal area. I'm not really into the abs, so I'm gonna try to find a way to fix it. Of course, can't just leave it like this. Does not look too good. So let's just do a few things to try to fix it. This portion will just be me trying to fix it. It's not gonna have too much talking. Basically, I prefer using the airbrush to kind of try to do a few things, various things, trying out new lighting, stuff like that, until it looks good. So yeah, that's basically my way of fixing it, as well as actually it helps if you have a reference, because then actually let me see if this works. If I have the highlight over here and then I have the shadow on this side, kind of like this. Not sure. Okay, that's actually not bad. I think I might go with that. And again, this is done completely on a separate layer, just in case I wanna either erase or change it or delete it. Doesn't matter. It's on a separate layer. It's not permanent. This lighting is actually not bad, and it's very defined. Like, I just have to maybe actually lighten this a bit like that and zoom in so I can start blending a bit. So this is a slightly different shading going on, different light source, but I kind of dig it. It's kind of working. Hopefully in the end, after I refine it, it still looks good. Hopefully. So this is gonna go here. Gonna have a bit of that rim light contouring the rib cage right here, and then going down to the hip bone, which is this area, like that. And this hip is also being contoured. Actually, there is a bit of shadow over here that's coming from the arm, so I have to make sure that this reads as it should. It's going like that. Okay, it's getting a little complex, but hopefully it still translates the way we want. Like that. Just making sure the shadow is kind of contouring the body. Actually don't know if this fits, so just going to keep it like that, and going to extend the hips right here, and I'm just going to just blend this out like this. hold on. Sorry if I'm a bit quiet. All I'm doing at this moment is kind of figuring out the shading for the abs, as well as kind of apply the same sort of shading to the cloth down here, pretty much. Oof, that is a lot of contrast. Okay, let me add just a bit of light in here. Actually, let's smooth this out. Stuff is getting a bit messy, so have to kind of clean that up, more or less. Let's add a bit of highlight on this side. I'm trying to kind of see how far I can push this part. So if I push it over here, I can make the leg like that, pretty much. But let's see. Actually, this might. Nah, let's not do that. Still gonna have that highlight there. And then I'll have the hip bone highlight on the side, like that. Okay, I think that's what we will have it. And just going to kind of bring the hip bone a little bit further to the edge, like that. Okay, and then going to removing the highlight over here a bit and just smoothing that out. Actually, what if I don't have it highlighted over? Or maybe not as dark. Or maybe like this. It's extended. Deselect before, after. So this is after. I kind of like this better because the lighting is a little better in this case. Because of the shading, I feel like maybe this leg needs to be a bit longer, like that. And also the belly should be a little bit curved inwards a bit more, you know, for the hips and all. And then just going to remove a bit of it on that side, deselect, go to the whole layer and I want to flip it over, have a look, see if it looks weird. I feel like this definitely looks a lot better than what I had whoa, that was weird. What I had previously. Still think it needs a bit more work. So probably be doing that soon. Okay, so this is what we have. Kind of want to bring this down a little. Like that. Just bring it down a bit more. And because of that, I'm going to move that leg too. Here. And I'm going to delete this, lock that down, and I'm going to add a little bit of highlight here. There we go. And I'm going to make this part shaded. So right now I pretty much, for some reason my brain goes like, I don't want any foreshortening on this character. Cause I always think it looks weird. So I can't help but like change that. So I have a tendency to make things very flat and not like foreshortened ever. Whenever I do try to make it foreshortened, my brain tells me it looks weird, which sometimes I'm sure it does. But I just can't help myself. My brain always tells me to fix it, to make it more even, less foreshortened, whatnot. So this is probably the best that I can do for now. At least I don't really want to be spending 10 more hours on this. Because I can easily spend 10 more hours on this and try to figure out a pose. Because a lot of times when I learn, I find this is how I learn, by like spending like a really long time trying to figure something else, is when I learn the most. However, we're gonna try to finish these in a timely manner. So yeah. And just went ahead and covered up those really bright tone. I think I'm gonna go with this. And finally, I'm just gonna select my little tart and just gonna make it a little brighter like that, and perhaps even go into adjustment and make it a little, actually nah, I want to keep it like that. So because of that, it stands out a bit more, which is good. Now I'm gonna go into the belly button. This is like my favorite way to paint belly button. And gonna blend that out. I want the belly button to be nice and soft and smooth looking. And just going to go ahead and, I'm sorry I say too much, and kind of nicely blend that in. That. Okay, I think I will go with this. Oh gosh, no, that's too dark. I was hoping for a nice little hip bone, but that was too dark and too high. So maybe like that? Actually, it's not too bad. Let me add a bit of highlight color. It is getting a little dull here. So I just added a bit of that highlight that I had going on the leg so that it would fit better. Let me put a bit of shadow over here, especially underneath the bra. let's keep it like that, and trying to figure out a way to shade this bit right here without making it look too weird. Maybe add just a little bit of shadow to kind of contour that rib cage, pretty much. Kind of like that. Okay. Okay, not bad. It's getting there. I'm a lot happier with it. And trying to fix the leg here now. Let me go ahead and select the center of the leg. Make another layer, constrain it. And then just kind of, actually nah, keep it like that. Just going to kind of add a bit more shadow, almost like following over here the hip bone. Pretty much. Deselect, and that's what we have. I'm gonna use an airbrush eraser so I can softly ease this. Maybe, actually no, I want it to be darker, like that. Sorry, I just sneezed, so I don't want you guys to hear that. Okay, it's not looking too bad. I think I'll go with it. I'm gonna add just a little bit of highlight on that side, just because there is lighting coming from that side, and I think it's a pretty good opportunity to add a bit of detail. So I took the opportunity to do that. Actually, it might look a bit too much. Let's remove it. Too much. How much highlight? I think I'll just go with... nope. Maybe just on this side. Just a teeny bit to separate the legs and all. Going back to the other leg, making it dark. Kind of trying to accommodate what I have going on already. And I'm just gonna use my lasso tool to do a cleaner pass and a much faster pass of the little rib pieces here. Going to inverse so that I can work on the inside of the leg, put a bit of shadow there. Deselect. Now I'm going to reselect, but only this part, and lock that down, and I'm going to do a more clean version of this. I want to be doing like a bit of a ripped texture here and there, because you know, she is a fighter. There we go. I've tried playing Riven before, but she requires too much mechanic. That's why I usually play ADC. But Riven is a pretty good carry champion if you're really good at her. Unless there's been nerfs that I don't know about. Anyways. I wanted to mention that in the cinematic, they also had Akali, and in terms of female character that really stood out to me, I thought Irelia, they did a really good job on Irelia. She looked really nice. So there we go. This is a bit more detailed. And I want to add a little button here. So on the side it's actually a little fuzzy. I'm going to kind of adjust that like this to add a bit of highlight on the side, like that. There we go. Okay, I like this. Now back to this leg. Lock that. Gonna go here. Oh gosh, gonna go here and make sure that area is dark, and going to add a bit more highlight on this area here using the airbrush. And also probably darker here too, like that, so that it fits the whole situation over here where it's light, 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 dark, dark, dark. That's what we want. Consistency. Maybe I should give her another bit of stocking underneath. I think stockings look really good on female characters. It really just contours the character design, like having that extra little detail. That's why you guys see me paint a lot of female pinups with stockings. There we go. In terms of guys, I think male character look really good with like torso straps. It's like the equivalent of stockings for me, at least for guys, for male characters. Okay, there we go. Lock that down, apply a bit of lighting on that side. There we go. Okay, I've been kind of neglecting the face. So yeah, so now at least we have the body pretty much more or less at a good level, and now we can work on the face without feeling like, oh, we just like left the whole body and just working on the face, and now it's like I've spent so much time and pretty much I haven't gotten anything done except the face, which happens to me. Well, actually, I learned from a mistake. It doesn't really happen to me anymore, but before I used to be one of those artists that just like super focus on the face but ignores everything else. But that is not really good, because then you feel kind of shitty afterwards. Anyways. Alright guys, let's just work on the face just a bit. We're not gonna go super detailed into the face. I might actually turn this into a full piece later on, if you guys like, of course. But yeah, for now we'll just do what we can for sorry, I was gonna repeat that. We'll just see where this takes us. Hopefully I can get it to a decent enough level, passable level. Let's focus on that face. Damn, I can't zoom in. My canvas is a bit too small for portrait zoom-ins, so we're gonna have to make do with what we have. And oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Again, I'm just looking at my reference on the side. Very helpful here, and kind of just following the general features. That. And I noticed that she actually has a scar here, but before that, let's put the pupil and the lights of the eyes and fix that eyebrows, because it is like a more determined eyebrow. Okay, and also fix the nose. The nose is not okay, so I'm just gonna put a bit of highlight up there. And I'm going to select the whole face, the whole eye area, and I'm going to just move it down and basically kind of making the eyes a little bigger by just and the face a little smaller by making the by making the eyes a bit bigger. Okay, And also she has a scar on her face. It's really light though, so I'm gonna try to keep it light as well, somewhat like that. Kind of following the way it's shaded and all. And I'm gonna go ahead and select a lighter color so that I can start. And oh, okay, actually I'm gonna move this up a bit like that. Reduce the size, merge down. I'm going to add a little bit of highlight on the corners, on each of these corners here, and also on top here. Okay, maybe here too. I'm gonna copy, paste, go to adjustment, brightness, and turn that up. This is like a really fast way of doing, kind of just adjusting the highlights a bit. So I kind of like this highlight. After that, since it's on a separate layer, you can kind of clean up the highlight a bit, just using the erase tool. Just clean that up. And you know what, you can just leave it like that. It's kind of abstract, it's kind of cool looking. And since we are kind of strapped for time, that's probably what I will do. And after, you can like add some small hair strands, especially in these super light areas, these already highlighted areas, to give it that hair-like texture without actually having to go in to the main areas and having to texture it in. Of course, if you do that, it'll look more realistic. Okay, I'm digging how this looks, actually. Really happy with it. I think this will be it for that, and this is like the least amount of time that I've ever spent on a character on a character's face ever. Now I'm gonna try to see if I can just add a little bit more detail to the sword. Actually, I gotta find a good reference. Usually, even though I have a rough idea of how it looks, I really like to have a reference at all times, just so I know I don't mess up and stuff like that. Alright guys, down to a last bit of detail. So we're gonna zoom in here, work on this a bit. So I'm gonna sketch out the hand like I usually do. This is the best way for me to draw hands, pretty much. So I usually create the shape first with a bigger brush, and then I go in with a smaller brush to line it, and then I would blend it in afterwards, and that's how I would usually draw hands. So I have a reference for the sword, so I'm gonna start adding in just a little bit more detail to it. It's got like a turn here, up here. And then like a ring here. Like that. And then just like a lot of detail on the sword. That, a bit of a rust on the side, or scratches on the side. I'm just following actually the reference from the actual Riven concept, so that helps. And I'm gonna some highlight up here. Maybe not that much, but enough. And then we have the blade on this side. So I'm just going to have that. So this is the sword, really rough. Going down. There we go. Okay, the sword is not super impressive. But yeah. And what I will be doing is taking Leiden, and I'm going in with a bluish tone, and I'm just gonna kind of fade this back. Actually, probably does not work too well. Just gonna add a bit more shadow here. Hopefully I can kind of sell that as fade into the background, and then I'm going to add a bit of that light on the sword and bring back some of that dark look. Then a bit of light over here. Now that I have that done, there's just a little bit more work, so there is actually a chain around her, so I'm gonna have that. Just gonna have it go around like that. And she also actually has chain around her hips. Oops. But let's just keep that off. Maybe I can kinda... Nah, doesn't work. Maybe I can do a bit of crisscross on the arm here, because I do see that design on the leg, and that'll be interesting to bring it up a bit. There we go. And then I'm going to lighten that up, add a little bit of light on it. Same for the chain, just going to add a little bit of highlight on the top of the chain at least. Just a little bit. When it comes to chain brush, you'll want to keep the highlights thin, and depending on how much time you want to work on it, you can either be a bit abstract or add a lot more detail to it. Literally just paint each chain one by one. So this is what we have. Oh, wait. I'm a bit too lazy, so I'm just gonna make it like really, really abstract. And of course, there we go. I'm going to also, whoa, that's weird. Copy paste, make it a little smaller, bring it up. Actually, no, let's just leave it how it is. Okay, so this is what we have. Actually, you know what? I kind of like the lighting over here better, so I'm just gonna bring that over to this too. Bring that lake over here. Put it on lighten, so it just makes the area that's darker than that thing, make it lighter. I think it will have a more interesting lighting if I do this. Okay, now for the hand here, it's looking a little pale, so bring that back. Like that. And we'll just kind of leave it, I guess. I don't really want to. I'm sorry, I just don't want to work on this arm. Trying to kind of get away with the most minimum effort I can with this hand right here. There we go. I guess that's fine. Going to the upper layer, just want to extend that bit. Okay, so this is what we have. Now I have to kind of add just a bit of texture, at least sort of like scars or something, just to fit the what's it called, working vibe, like battle vibes. Yes. Have a bit on the leg too, and of course you can kind of add a little bit of dirt everywhere. I'm gonna be adding it on this layer, so let's add a bit of dirt on the arm. Actually, there should be a brush for this. I'm just gonna use this brush here. Bit too much. I'm gonna take that down, and then you have the texture of like sweat texture. Let's use good old-fashioned, hold on, this brush. Yes, my good old-fashioned I used to use this brush so much, the skin tone brush, which also kind of does really nice highlight as well, and texture. Actually, it's a nice skin texture brush, like that. It looks kind of muddy, so I'm gonna erase it here. So kind of just going through, adding it in just certain areas. That. Alright guys, so this is pretty much more or less our finished result. Let me just put this on normal so I can add a couple of filters on it, effect, so to say. Let's make it super bright. And for the background, I kind of want to emulate the cinematic, so let's kind of go for a nice golden shaded background. Hold on. Kind of want to I'm kind of really tempted to just slap photo texture in for the background. It would be so easy. Add a bit of... Okay, I think this will do. This will do just fine. Gonna make these areas a little darker, just so it stands out a bit more. So when it comes to simple background like this, it's all about making the character stand out. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm just gonna go ahead and apply a bit of overlay. It's kind of messy, but it should look better in a more serious full piece instead of a tutorial like this. So yeah, voila, this is our final result. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I will be doing the not safe for work portions separately, just in case, you know, some of you aren't really into that. But we'll have that option anyways, just because I haven't done any not safe for work tutorial for a while. So yeah, let's get started. I'll see you guys soon in the not safe for work portion. Actually, before that, I kind of want to remove a bit of that. There we go. Okay, so I'll see you guys soon in the not safe for work portion. And for those of you that are done right now, I hope this helped you guys in some way. Hope you got insight on how long it takes me to do a few things, and that it's always good to have reference. Don't be afraid to experiment and stuff like that. I'll see you guys in the next voiceover tutorial. Have a great day, guys.